The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Pollock, and I'm the Marketing Coordinator for SWK Technologies. I'd like to welcome you to our webinar, Expect the Unexpected, Everything You Need to Know to Maintain Operations During a Disaster, presented by Bill Michael of SWK Technologies. A little housekeeping before we get started. Everyone has been placed on mute to keep the background noise to a minimum. However, throughout the webinar, you can submit any questions you have. If you'd like to submit a question, look for the questions section in your GoToWebinar, and we will answer all your questions at the end of the presentation. We are also recording this presentation, and it will be distributed tomorrow to all attendees, as well as those who registered but were not able to attend. And finally, please take a moment towards the end of the presentation to answer our survey question. With that said, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to attend our webinar. We're here to help you get the most out of your software solutions and help you find an easier way to run your business by providing you with tools, support, software, and industry knowledge whenever you need it. We know how important your business is, and that's why we want to help you protect it from risk and keep operations running should a disaster strike. So whether you're here researching a new solution or you're just here to learn, we'd like to encourage you to ask any questions you have. Lastly, as a quick reminder, SWK is constantly sharing important updates and software tips and tricks on our social media channels. We encourage you to follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. With that said, I'll hand it over to you, Bill.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Bill Michael. I'm the Vice President of Managed Cloud Services Practice at SWK. Thank you for joining us today for an exciting and very relevant topic on how to navigate your business disruptions and continue to operate. As background, I'm a risk management professional with over 25 years of experience in business continuity and disaster recovery, 24/7 IT operations, and security compliance and audit services. I'm very excited to share my insights and perspective with you all today on topics that can literally make the difference between remaining in or going out of business. My information is listed so that if you have any questions after the webinar, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. So during today's session, we're going to be covering the following topics. We're going to take a look at the risk landscape. We're going to look at threats that are posed from natural disasters, as well as cyber attacks. We're going to look beyond the technology. We're going to look at how to manage your risk and different techniques and options. And then lastly, we're going to look at the SWK service offerings and how we may help you manage your risk and protect your business. As a quick overview of SWK Technologies, we're a nationally recognized managed services provider in North America, and we're able to deliver services across the entire US through our 170-person strong team with core expertise in cybersecurity, cloud hosting, managed IT, and ERP solutions. Our mission is to delight our clients and enable success. Now let's take a look at the risk landscape. When people talk about business continuity and disaster recovery, what they're really talking about is risk. What risks threaten my business, my livelihood? How do I mitigate these risks? Risk can be eliminated, mitigated, or simply accepted. Why would I accept the risk? Might be cost prohibitive as compared to the likelihood of the occurrence, or the mitigation costs are more than the outcome. I view risks in four categories. Societal, so what have we been dealing with over the last year and a half? The pandemic and the wide effect that's had on businesses, our personal lives, and the global economy. You have the social justice movement that has affected us throughout the United States and the world. And then you have a fractured and I would say undersupplied workforce that is partially driven by the pandemic. Then you have geopolitical. So this is where economic policies, including subsidies, are directly impacting recovery. Some countries are even resorting to protectionism, where they're focused on taking care of their own and causing a distribution and supply chain issue across the globe. If you're looking for a new car, you may have difficulty getting one, or the prices are much higher than you would have seen a year or two ago. Why? Because the electronics that are required in the manufacturing of the cars are at they're difficult to obtain because of the supply chain issues. So the geopolitical really has a wide-ranging impact. As owners and operators, geopolitical, societal aren't things that you can necessarily control, but you can most certainly affect your business, and your acknowledgement and response can help or hinder your ability to navigate those challenges. But this presentation will focus on the other two risk categories, that being environmental and technology. So taking a look at natural disasters. So whether it's attributable to global warming or a regular cycle of the Earth's 4.5 billion year history, there sure seems to be a proliferation of natural disasters that place lives and businesses at risk. Let's take a look at a few that may be directly impacting you, your customers, and or your vendors. So severe weather, Hurricane Ida, which hit Louisiana a few weeks ago and then made its way up to, through the East Coast, caused massive damage and disruption to businesses and lives through wind and flooding. Then you have the annual forest fires in the California, Oregon region. They continue to pop up, and they seem to occur with greater frequency than they did 5-10 years ago. And then you have extreme heat and cold that cause power outages, rolling or complete, across different parts of the country. So weather is definitely impacting businesses and your ability to continue to operate during these events. Then you have solar flares, which are naturally occurring events from the sun. So, these solar flares emit from the sun, and when they hit the Earth, it creates an electromagnetic pulse that can disable or destroy electronics. That's especially concerning when you look at the power grid in the US and how fragile and old it is. Then you're probably asking, what does Greek mythology have to do with this presentation? Well, you have earth, wind, fire, and water. Okay, so not technically natural disasters, but these four classic elements can certainly cause serious business interruption. You have a pipe burst in your office or your home that causes damage to your infrastructure, your electronics, your computers. You have electrical fires that occur that affect your business. So these are examples of events that can cause and affect your business and your ability to continue to operate. Cyber terrorism. It's all you hear about in the news these days. Bad actors and nation states attacking and trying to compromise your data and system assets. The stakes have never been higher for you or the bad guys. Understanding their techniques and methods is critical to your defensive posture. So let's take a look at social engineering. This is a situation where bad actors attempt to engage employees through human interaction, not technical, to divulge sensitive information. Most common threats are phishing and spear phishing. Phishing is when you get that email that they attempt to portray themselves as Verizon, and they try to develop a relationship and get you to disclose information. Spear phishing is very similar, but it's very targeted. So for example, we've living in the pandemic era. A lot of us have gotten their vaccination shot. Well, after the vaccination shot, there are records of you getting the shot and what type of vaccine you received. So these bad actors are targeting you through a phishing attack from your local or state agency, talking about COVID, talking about you, when you got it, what vaccination you received. So it establishes a relationship in a sense of trust. So while spear phishing is more targeted, it's more effective based on establishing that credibility. Then you have ransomware. You've heard about ransomware all the time. That's where you click on malware, wrong link, and it sets off a program and encrypts the data on your machine. You can only get access back to the data to your machine once you've paid a ransom. Then you have third-party software platforms. So what could possibly go wrong when millions of people are drawn to a platform such as Facebook or Instagram? You know, you have a situation where you have a large gathering of people, and it makes it very attractive for the bad actors and nation states to target those groups. You know, instead of one person I'm hitting, I can potentially defraud millions. So you have to be careful when you are accessing these platforms. So let's take a look at some fun facts. So if you look at the charts on the screen, in 2021, cybercrime has resulted in $16.4 billion a day of assets at risk, 684.9 million per hour, 11 million per minute, 190,000 per second. Those are quite staggering numbers. You look at the growth over time of ransomware and the damages from 325 million in 2015 to just 6 years later, over $20 billion. That's quite staggering. And again, when I said earlier that it's attractive to both us and the bad actor, it's true. There's a lot of dollars that are at stake for them to try to get. And as business owners, you want to protect your businesses. Then let me talk about a couple examples that occurred just in 2021. I'm sure most of you have heard about the Colonial Pipeline ransomware that crippled operations, affecting about 60% of the fuel distribution to the East Coast. Colonial ended up paying a $4.4 million ransom to get the key to get their data back. Then in Central Florida, a couple hospitals over Labor Day weekend experienced a cyber event. They call it an event because they did not disclose any additional information, but you can presume it was a cyber attack, and it resulted in these two hospitals suspending email and reverting back to paper and pencil. So if you think the healthcare system can be frustrating and long lines to get to be seen by your physician or the emergency room, imagine what reverting back to paper and pencil caused to that whole supply chain and the ability for the hospitals to take care of the patients that are coming in. So when everybody thinks about security, business continuity, or disaster recovery, 99% inevitably focus on the technology. So while technology is certainly a component in your business strategy, there are equally important factors that can completely nullify your efforts and result in a data breach, business interruption, and potentially bankruptcy. So when you look beyond technology, first and foremost, you should look at the people. People are your weakest link. We spoke earlier about social engineering, phishing, ransomware. You can go through and be trained and be vigilant, but it takes one moment, 1 second where you just don't think and you accidentally click on a link, and there you go. You've given the credentials, you've given the bad actors a key into your environment to do what they want with it. So you really need to focus on your people. Awareness training is, a key component of the strategy. And then you have governance. Governance is about your business. It's not software that you've deployed. What are your business objectives? How does technology fit into your overall business strategy? What are your security requirements, either self-defined or defined for you by regulations such as HIPAA or PCI, depending on what industry you operate in? Governance sets the baseline from which all other company directives, operational decisions, and so forth are formed. Governance plays a key strategy in developing and strengthening your security posture. And then lastly, you have cyber insurance. So cyber insurance, a lot of companies say, hey, a lot of bad things happen, ransomware and other things. I'll just get insurance and I'll be protected. If something happens, they'll pay for it. I'm in business. But a couple things have changed, over the last couple of years. You saw the slides before and you saw the staggering numbers, that billions and billions of dollars that it's costing the insurance companies to be able to pay out in the policy. So, cyber insurance firms are really tightening the requirements for you to apply and to get insurance. So it's not simply a matter of saying, yes, I have these controls in place, I encrypt, I use strong passwords, I do regular assessments. They are demanding and requiring that you validate and demonstrate proof that these things are occurring. And if you answer one way, don't really deploy it, you can find yourselves at the time of making a claim for them to deny. And nothing worse than that in your moment of need, knowing that that financial assistance isn't there. And you also have to remember too that even if you pay the ransom, whether you're paying it or the insurance company is, there's no guarantee that you get your data back. It could have been corrupted during the encryption process. What people fail to realize too is when the data is being de-encrypted, it could take days, weeks, months for that to occur. So while they can encrypt your data in a heartbeat, it takes a lot longer to get the data unencrypted and validated and back in an operational state. So can your business sustain not only the incident, but that additional time, which could be lengthy? Can your business survive that? Is that acceptable to you and to your customers? So how do you manage your risks? So your risk management strategy should employ multiple vectors to lower the chances of an event that impacts your business operations. First and foremost, making sure that you have a robust backup and disaster recovery solution is critical, right? Your data operates on systems, and you need to make sure that that data is backed up and protected and available to you should something happen. You need to make sure that those backups are protected against ransomware, that those backups don't get infected, and at time of need, you find that they're invalid, right? So, proper backups are critical. And then your ability to recover through a disaster recovery plan, and being able to not only recover that server, the data, but you also need to be aware of the other aspects. Where are you going to work? How do you communicate with your employees, customers? Are there any up or down paths and changes with your vendors or other suppliers that are critical in delivery of your service, and your business. Those are things you need to be aware of. Then you have to look at security awareness training. As I said earlier, people are your weakest link. So if you are educating them on what to look out for, what are the methods that a bad actor would employ to try to get them to give up their credentials, knowing what they're doing, how they're doing it will just increase the chances that they will not fall for those campaigns and increase the likelihood that your data and systems remain unaffected. Compliance as a service. This is a concept where we're packaging, vendors are packaging different solutions to provide a 360-degree shield against these cyber threats and protecting your data. That could include quarterly vulnerability assessments to make sure there's no open holes, that everything is locked down. Are the controls that you implemented effective? That's what that accomplishes. Compliance audit. Again, getting back to the governance piece, it goes beyond just the technology. So do you have the policies and procedures? Do you have the oversight from your executive team, your board of directors, to ensure that all the controls are effective, they're logged and written, and that you can effectively navigate the threat landscape. So going through a compliance audit against NIST, which is an industry standard best practice for cyber security, or if you're an industry where you have regulatory requirements like HIPAA or PCI, going through an annual audit is really key and complementary to the technology you've deployed, so that again you have that 360-degree protection. Then there's other things that you can and should be doing, multi-factor authentication, so that beyond your password you have a code or another action that you're taking to validate that it's you. So if they do get your password, if they don't have your phone or an application, they can't get in. Making sure that your systems are encrypted so the data is not clear text and accessible. And then lastly, endpoint detection and response, EDR. That's your next generation antivirus backed by a security operations center, where they are gearing toward those advanced threats such as ransomware, and being backed and monitored and managed by security professionals around the clock to ensure that your data and systems are protected and that your business can continue to operate. So SWK's Managed Cloud Services practice offers clients with a robust set of services to ensure that your data assets are protected, your IT infrastructure is maintained and operational, your employees have access to a world-class help desk, an engineering team to meet all of their daily needs, as well as be available for those special projects that your firm needs. They also provide hosting services to help maximize your IT budget and improve resiliency. And of course, backup and disaster recovery to ensure your business can continue to operate during and after a disaster. So thank you so much for joining our webinar today. As a special offer for registrants of the webinar, we're offering a SMB, Business Continuity DR package to make your BCDR accessible to everyone. So please reach out after the webinar or let us know in the poll how to get information about what this package includes. And now I'll pass it back to you, Courtney.
Thank you, Bill. We'll now have a quick poll we would appreciate your participation in. We are asking if you would like to be contacted for more information. And thanks to everyone who's answering the poll. And we're also going to open up for questions shortly. If you have any questions, please go ahead and enter them into the questions section of GoToWebinar. And we'll just give it a minute to let everyone have a chance to answer the poll. Okay, thank you everyone for your responses. I'm going to close the poll shortly. And now we're going to move on to questions. And I think we've had a couple come in, Bill.
Okay.
So our first question is SWK able to assist with advising on policy and procedure?
Absolutely. So it kind of goes back to beyond the technology, earlier in the presentation. So it goes back to governance. It goes back to ensuring that you have policies and procedures in place and oversight to complement your decisions, make sure that your business strategy is set both from an IT governance and a security governance perspective. So we can certainly help with development of those policies and procedures. So for example, an acceptable use statement and policy is very important to really set the framework and the ground rules for your employees. So if they're on a company issued computer, what are the do's and the don'ts, right? Only use it for business. Do not go to websites that aren't tied to your job function. Do not check your personal email, on the personal, on the work computer, and so forth. So we can certainly help with that, incident response plans, developing business continuity and disaster recovery plan, and so forth.
Great, those are some great tips. And I think you might have just touched on this, but we had a question come through. Can SWK help us develop an incident response plan?
Absolutely. So, it's interesting when people talk about incident response plans and the need of, the most frequent response is, well, that's why I have you. That's why I have you, SWK. If there's an incident, I'm going to call you. You'll handle it. And while we are certainly part of the incident response chain, the client plays a big part in the incident response plan. So when an issue is detected and reported, yes, you come and you talk to us, but what are the obligations that you as a company have? Who do you need to report to? Do you have reporting requirements to your customers? Do you need to reach out to your insurance broker to report it? Who do you need to notify within and outside of your company? So there is definitely a big part of an incident response plan that requires you, the client. So it's a collaborative effort, but having an incident response plan that's laid out, defines the roles, responsibilities, ensures that you have pre-described everything that you need to do to successfully navigate an incident and come out of an incident as quickly as possible, and get your business up and running as quickly as possible. So we can certainly sit down and help build out that incident response plan for you.
Great. And I know you also mentioned having an annual audit. Someone in our audience would like to know if SWK is able to perform a compliance audit.
Yes, absolutely. So we talked about compliance as a service earlier, and part of that was this annual audit. So compliance as a service, again, packages all the things that you need over the course of a year to ensure that you have a strong security posture and that your company is protected. We can also, engage and deliver audits on an ad hoc basis. So whether you want to validate controls and best practices against NIST, which again is a nationally recognized standard for cyber security, or you wanted to do it against a regulated standard such as HIPAA or payment card industry for payment processors, GDPR if you're dealing with the European Union, and data privacy. We can certainly work with you to go through those audits and produce reports and evidence that will demonstrate your readiness and compliance against those standards. And I highly recommend, that firms do that at least annually. Again, the big piece is beyond the technology, that governance is so critical. Lack of governance can really undo all the technology that you've deployed because it just opens up holes.
Great. And we've also had another question come in. If SWK is doing the cloud hosting, what cybersecurity components are included in the hosting?
That's a great question. So, security is at the forefront of what SWK does. We want to delight our customers. We want to provide the best possible services and user experience. But, security is at the top of that list, right? You could have a great service, but if it's not secure, then, what good is it? And if we're here, talking to you about best practices, the do's and the don'ts, and how you should view things, if we're not leading with that within the services that we provide, shame on us. So within the hosting practice, we deploy those same tools and services for our own offering. So if you host with SWK, you're going to have the advanced cyber protection. You're going to have the endpoint protection that's going to give you the real-time monitoring and protection against ransomware and other advanced threats. It's going to have 24/7 Security Operations Center backing it. We're going to be able to correlate events that are happening across the infrastructure to identify not only what is happening, where it's happening, and how extensive or isolated a situation would be. We go through SOC 2 compliance to ensure all the controls, policies, and procedures are in place and validated to secure our operation of the hosting practice and our people and what we do in the service delivery to again make sure that the services are secure and as best as possible, but to also give and attest to you that our people and processes are aligned to your needs.
Great. And we also have another question. Can SWK conduct periodic penetration testing as a part of an overall cybersecurity architecture?
Great question. Yes, absolutely. I keep referencing compliance as a service. Part of compliance as a service and that 360-degree protection includes quarterly vulnerability assessments and penetration tests, right? So you can put all these tools in place, you can have these policies and procedures in place through the governance, but you need, an external and internal assessment of how effective are those controls? Are those controls doing what they're intended to do? Are there any new holes or issues that you need to be aware of? Because remember, we can lock things down today, and 2 hours from now, there's a new exploit that was released. So you have to continuously check and validate. Being good today doesn't mean that you're good tomorrow. So, going through and performing the vulnerability assessment penetration test is a key component to what I said earlier, that layer defense. And we absolutely can help perform that on whatever frequency you wish.
Well, those are all great answers. And again, thank you so much, Bill. I think that concludes all of the questions that we've had come in. It was a great presentation, and thank you for taking the time to be here today. And I'd also like to thank everyone for attending our webinar, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Appreciate your time.